For joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge. I chair the Historic Preservation Commission. And as usual, big agenda. Want to get everybody out here on time, so we'll just jump in. I will ask, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This will ensure that commission members and applicants can hear each other. Please remain quiet until you're called upon. And when you do address the commission, please come to the podium right here at the center of the room and state your name and address for our records. And I will unfortunately have to cut you off if we don't do that. So we're going to be watching that closely. Before the commission votes on any items, we will ask if anyone from the public wishes to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to the commission members. Please be thorough and also be mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along, select Agenda on the right-hand side of Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see which items are being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting were posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with commission other than what you're telling us. So if you brought new materials with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept and review. And I repeat, we cannot accept and review new information in today's meeting other than what you guys are relaying at the podium. Keith, can you please call roll?
Fudge.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
McBride.
Present.
Milner.
Present.
Hoare.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Wood.
Present.
With quorum.
Excellent. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone who is unfamiliar with the process, we would ask you to refer to that section. There are 2 items that we like to note specifically regarding this meeting process, and they revolve around certificates of appropriateness, or CAs, and appeals. Regarding CAs, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the HP officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, what do we have from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer? Anything we need to move today?
So no items that need to be moved. I did want to note something that is at the end of your agenda, which is our February 14th workshop. We had some conflicts for staff come up with other meetings that are also on that day, so we're not going to have a workshop that day. I'd sent an email and heard back from a couple of folks on either February 21st or 28th. If anyone has not responded to that and wants to let me know if one or the other of those dates will work, please let me know, but we'll get another workshop scheduled before the end of the month.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the acceptance of minutes. Item number 3, have the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the January 3rd meeting? And if so, do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion passes. Let's see, by a vote of 5 yes and 2 abstain. Let's move on to item number 4. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing specific to report. As always, you have a code enforcement report in your packet. If you all ever have questions about any of those items, you can reach out to HP staff or to the city's action center for more information.
Thank you. Anything, any continuance announcements, requests, or uncontested continuance?
We did not have any continuance requests on the agenda, and we have not received any new requests prior to the meeting.
Thank you. How about information on dilapidated structures or National Register nominations?
No dilapidated structures this month, and no National Register nominations, although you will have one next month, so get excited.
Looks like we've got 1 item on the consent docket today. Do we have any discussion, or do we need a motion, or do we need any discussion, or do we have a motion to approve or move forward?
I would motion to approve the consent docket.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Wood. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item passes unanimously. If you're on the consent docket, congrats, your project is approved. You've got the option to stick around for the remainder of this meeting or head out at this point. And we will move on to item D, cases for individual consideration. We have 7 on the agenda today. The first one is HPCA 23-00121 at 133 Northwest 16th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Isaac Cornell for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace all windows, elective. The commission has seen this application twice previously, so this is their last remaining hearing that needs to be either approved or denied today. We have yet to receive sufficient documentation of the condition of the windows to justify approval of replacement of all windows. So staff has recommended denial with prejudice. Denial with prejudice would mean they could not reapply for exactly the same thing for the next year. They could come back and reapply at any time if they had new and additional documentation of the project.
Okay, is the applicant present? Any citizens wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I will motion to deny HPCA 23-00121 with prejudice.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Wood. Please vote in PrimeGov. That item was passed unanimously. It is denied with prejudice. And we will move on to item number 2, HPCA 23-00137 at 108 Northwest 15th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by Rachel Massey, Indian Organizing LP for Oksana Dajek, QWAK Real Estate LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace all windows, required 3, install light fixtures at front porch and balcony, elective, 4, infill 2 rear door openings with matching brick and mortar, elective, and 7, infill 2 rear door openings with matching brick and mortar, elective. The commission has seen this project a number of times as well. We are down to just these few remaining items. Several other things have been approved by the commission at this point. We have recommended approval on numbers 4 and 7, as those are in the rear and not in a highly visible location. We have recommended approval with conditions on the replacement of the windows. The applicant has clarified that a number of windows are in fact being repaired and reinstalled, and they have sent us photos of that ongoing work. I think our conditions largely relate to ensuring that we have adequate documentation that the replacement windows will be true divided light, and then that the window described as window number 11 remain open. It's on the side of the building, and it was proposed to be closed in as part of the application. Staff determined that that doesn't meet our guidelines. And then we did recommend continuance on the light fixtures. That is something staff can certainly work through as an administrative approval with the applicant if they're willing. So.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Drew Necker, other member of QWAK Real Estate, address 701 Northwest 14th Street.
Perfect. Okay.
So all those things are perfectly fine. The only thing I would add is that the light fixture that you mentioned as an administrative item, we're happy to change, right? We just used one from the appropriate supplier that you guys had indicated. And so if there's a need for what was indicated as a flush to the ceiling fixture, we're happy to change that.
Are you guys comfortable with the, was it window number 8 remaining closed? Is that what the?
11.
Number 11.
It's not, we prefer it not to be that way, but at the same time, we're not positive what it would take to, because that's been removed and bricked in, reframing inside of it is what we have to investigate, right? So.
Sorry. Sorry, keep going, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just to get clarification, it has already been removed.
It didn't exist when we bought the property, correct? It's just bricked in.
Okay.
It's an opening that's bricked in. So it's in page, shoot, these pages aren't numbered, but we have pictures of it under window 11. So from the back side, as you're looking out from the interior, it's
Okay.
it's actually framed over. So it's not just that, you know, they whoever had this property for the past, 10, 20 years had framed over it. So we'd have to change the interior wood framing to dig out where it's located.
Is there a picture from the external view?
That's what I was
Oh.
wondering.
There is in the, let's see, shoot.
West side of
There's a previous submission that showed it, that also is in your stack. There's a north facade picture that would show it with the ivy growing over top of it.
Should be on the, west side of the building, is that right? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, the west side. Yep.
There we go.
Okay, Katie, is this, and I apologize, is this the second or third application on this property?
I think this is their
Continuance
third
left? Okay.
at bat with this one.
So, yeah, so on the lighting, first of all, can we continue lighting if this is their third at bat?
They were
don't.
saying they can administratively approve lighting.
So I think what you could do, since it sounds like the applicant's willing to work with staff, is approve it with the condition that a appropriate light fixture be submitted to staff.
Okay, in the staff report, it says continue, and I did think it was their third.
Yeah, I think you're
attempt,
right.
So, and then a question with regard to that, since we are doing a lot of attached conditions, that everybody work with staff, and especially on windows, which are, a pretty serious issue, especially in that stretch of the neighborhood. If they do not meet the agreed upon conditions with the window survey, or if the window survey doesn't dictate that they can replace these windows, what is the process since we are out of continuances on this case?
So if it is approved with a condition and then they cannot meet the condition, then that would come back to you essentially as a revision to the CA.
Okay.
I do have a question about that. Window survey would include a picture of every window, the condition description, and our then proposed remedy for that, correct?
That's really a better question for staff.
Well, we've done that. We've presented 2 of those. So in the notes, it said pursuant to a window survey, and we've presented 2. Here's every window, interior, exterior. Here's what we would do with every single one of them.
So
I just wanna
Katie,
make
what
sure
are we
that-
specifically
So
missing?
I
or
think
what is
we're in good
staff
shape on the documentation of the existing windows. We need documentation showing that the new windows will be true divided light. Because what we have right now doesn't show the Muntin configuration of the new windows to be built, which should be a fairly simple detail to verify. We just need something that shows that to go in the CA.
And we could conditionally.
Angela, correct me if there's something else that we're missing. Okay,
And we could conditionally approve that?
yep.
Okay.
Can I have some clarification on what windows we're talking about? Because looking at this photo, there's multiple windows that have been, I'm assuming, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've seen
I
4,
think-
5 windows.
This is the west side, but we're talking about the south side?
okay.
No, the,
Wasn't the west side.
no, but I mean, the windows that are approved, that were, recommended for approval, I believe are on the south side. So what we're looking at is the west side. Is
Okay,
that correct,
thank
Katie?
Drew, can you clarify
These
which
would
one of
be-
those would be bricked in?
I have
it one of those
I have,
windows?
Thank you.
I believe on this one, it's the one at the top with the vertical, kind of the vertical slats that's bricked in on the second floor.
Second story to the right of the chimney.
I mean, is another option just not to do anything with that particular opening and leave it as is?
Pardon me?
Is that a,
I mean, I'd rather see it bricked than left like that personally, but
We're happy to brick it. I mean, it seems easier because of the way the condition of that is.
I actually need further clarification, so I'm going to help make this more confusing. I'm also reading the neighborhood comments.
11 is the one that Cassie was asking about that's covered, or is that window 11?
That's window
That's
11.
window 11, okay.
Right.
Sorry, I thought earlier y'all said window 11 was not visible in these pictures from the exterior.
We're trying to get, that's what we're
Okay,
trying, that's
so
what we're
this is
trying to
window
understand.
11.
Okay, so staff report is
Okay,
recommending approval to keep it closed in.
Staff report was recommending approval with the condition that that go back as a window. But they're
Okay.
indicating, sorry.
It's okay.
and
It's
why
okay.
would we do that as an approval, just out of curiosity? It feels like something we haven't done in the past, that we've not necessarily approved things with so many agreed upon conditions for windows before.
Well, for starters, it may be because there are so many windows. It's a larger structure than we always see. I think we've often approved windows with the condition that some piece of documentation on the new window product be submitted to staff when the applicant's agreeable to that and we all are on the same page about what we're going to get. I didn't fully understand that there currently was not a window there on that one. I feel a little bit differently about a window that has not had a window in the opening for some time than I do
That's why we
about whether or not
proposed
it
it.
goes back. So, the case can be made for breaking in an opening like that and leaving kind of evidence in the way the brick is installed that that was once a window, so that someone could come back in the future and reinstall a window in that opening. The case can also be made for leaving it as is, doing what you need to make it weather tight, and kind of doing no further harm in one direction or the other.
So, window 11, that top one, that's the vertical wood, is that relating to item 7 on the agenda, infill 2 rear window openings?
No,
Okay,
Those on the backside.
so those are separate.
Yeah.
So where is this action item?
so it is lumped in with item 1, replace all windows.
Okay,
So on
think
specific
that's-
finding number 5, it says that closing window number 11 is not supported by standards and guidelines.
Okay.
But, to hopefully clarify things, Katie stating that she did not realize that they were, hoping to just infill something that's already infilled. She thought that there was a window there.
Yeah.
So.
I believe I'm caught up to speed, thank you.
Okay.
I was very confused by the item 7 compared to this, okay.
So how, are you guys completely opposed to just putting a window there? And the-
Not completely opposed, I mean, I don't know how to do that as easily, as just because of the way that's bricked in already on the other side of it.
Why don't we do this? I mean, as it's written in the staff report, it's an agreed upon condition that you meet with staff to ideally turn that back into a window. If you can't, that's a meeting with staff too. So no matter what, you're taking your solution back to staff. So, I mean, I feel comfortable with approving, although you did say that items 3, you were comfortable approving with the agreed upon condition that they meet with you for lighting, correct?
Yep.
I would feel comfortable moving this along in that direction, with a lot of agreed upon conditions and a lot of follow-up with staff.
Is there anybody else that would second that motion if she were to make it?
I actually have a question for
Yes, ma'am.
staff, really quick. We don't get breaking in windows very often here, and if we do, typically they're denied. So if this were something we were to approve, is there any, regulation or standard for what brick that they use in that opening? Because whatever new you buy is not going to match
Right.
that current brick.
Right.
So is there,
I mean, you can,
know.
this is kind of I don't know, I think this is a relatively normal color brick. We would look for a brick that matches as closely as we can and that's the same,
We've done facade repairs as well.
similar size.
And have brick that kind of matches, so there's facade repairs that have been done, like minor ones, a brick here or there.
right?
So we'd have them verify the brick they're going to use and confirm that it's going to be a close match to what's
Okay.
there, and the mortar and all of that.
Okay, curious.
I have questions because I'm still thoroughly confused. Will you go back to the picture with all the windows that are boarded in, whoever?
Yes, the one that showed the window from the interior.
Okay, here. Which window is window number 11 in that picture? Nope, I want him to tell me.
It's on the second floor. It
Okay.
has vertical wood slats.
Okay.
It's the only one
And
boarded in.
and on the interior, it is bricked in.
Correct. There are bricks against it, and then you have wood foundation boards placed perpendicular to parallel to the floor.
So if that wood is removed, you're going to see bricks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm confused on the condition that says that window number 11 will remain open.
That's because Katie was confused about the current status of it. She thought that there was glass in and that they wanted to fill it in with brick. She did not realize it was already filled.
So that condition would need to be amended?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
I think you could just strike that, if everyone's comfortable with them bricking it in, you could just strike that condition altogether and they can do what they've asked to do as proposed.
Oh, no, you're good.
And this is their elevation, it might help a little bit more.
that would also go as to specific finding number 5, that closing window number 11 is not supported because it actually is already closed.
Right.
Okay.
Just checking in, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, good. Let's see, so are we at a place where we feel like we could support a motion? Commissioner Wood? You feel good about it? Good, okay. Commissioner, whoever.
I'm going to go through these. I would make a motion to approve item 3.7 with the agreed upon conditions and specific findings, with specific finding 5 and condition 3 being stricken. And then also in that motion to approve item number 4 with the specific findings and conditions listed by staff, and approve item number 7 also with the specific findings and conditions by staff, and to, what did we say?
Approve with agreed upon conditions that the applicant meet with staff to.
Okay, and approve item 3 with agreed upon condition that the applicant will meet with staff and get their approval, or make sure that the lighting that is being put in is within guidelines.
Excellent.
I'll second.
So moved by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. Everybody had a chance to vote. Okay, that motion passes unanimously as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be able to see the list of those conditions. I want to make sure I hit all of them
Yes.
as they were amended here.
Yes, if you want to reach out to staff, to email me, email Angela, call, whatever, tomorrow, we'll go through everything and make sure we all get
Yeah, I
what
just
we
want to make
need.
sure I hit all the bullets so
Yeah.
that it's easily done.
Thank you.
Sir. All right, move on to item number 3, HPCA 23-00147 at 108 Northwest 19th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Diana Canary, Omega Investments for Scarlett Lee Cow, Omega Investments for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows damaged beyond repair required, 7, construct fence and gate elective, and 9, replace front non-historic windows elective. We have recommended, let me pull this up and make sure I tell you everything correctly. So the commission has seen this once previously. Several items were approved as part of the previous application. Staff did have some remaining concerns with the remaining items that are proposed. Portions of the fence do not meet the guidelines for fence location, so we did recommend approval with conditions. Sorry, I'm in the wrong document, guys. Approval with conditions for the fence related to the placement of the fence. We are still lacking some documentation on existing historic windows, so we recommended continuance on that item. That's certainly something that staff can continue to work with the applicant on, but we didn't feel we had enough to go on at this point to recommend approval of that. We, I think, do have adequate documentation that the front windows are non-historic, but I think are still lacking adequate documentation of the proposed replacement windows, showing that they will match the historic. So one item recommended for approval with conditions, and the window items recommended for continuance.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Scarlett Lecow, 108 Northwest 19.
Awesome. Talk to us about the comments from staff in terms of window documentation, and also how comfortable are you with moving the fence back to where it would actually fit within the guidelines?
What is the guideline for that fence?
Is it 40%? What is
Fence
it?
is, 40% of the length of the side of the house,
Okay.
if it's a solid fence. If it's a transparent fence, it only has to be set back 6 feet from the front wall of the house.
Solid fence, the privacy. So 40% of
The length of the house, basically.
the length of the house. Okay. Okay.
Let me see if we have.
It's too far forward now. If you're comfortable with a condition that says the fence will be put back into a proper location, I think we could probably approve that.
Where is that going to be in that photo? Do you mind to point like the mouse so I can see it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is that like between the two windows at the front or the back, or?
I think that's a great question, and it may be that it needs additional research from you to determine exactly where that would be, to come back to the commission with information to say, here's where it's going to be based off getting it into a setback where it fits within the guidelines too. That might be another
I'll
option.
just accept the recommendations.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that too.
Katie, I had a question about the staff report under where it says approve item 7, install fence. It doesn't address the gate, which was a part of item 7.
So we do not distinguish between gates and fences. A gate
Okay.
is a fence. We treat them the same. If, typically some portion of a fence is going to be a gate. So we didn't make any, I know there were comments from the neighborhood regarding gates, but for staff, for the way we review fencing and gates, if it meets the guidelines for a fence, it can also function as a gate.
Okay. And then I had one other question in the attachment where it is showing the existing conditions of the house, and the windows have kind of been labeled as to what's being repaired, replaced, et cetera. On what I believe, it's not labeled which facade it is, but I believe it to be the east facade. And this could have been addressed in the last meeting. I apologize, that was a long meeting, so I could just be forgetting something that was discussed. But the window labeled 15, there's an X through it and it says remove. Did we approve a removal of a window there entirely? And I'm just forgetting it?
I believe that is one of the windows that they had initially applied to remove and agreed to leave that in place.
Okay,
There
so
were
this is
several
just
other proposed
kind of
to be.
old info.
Yeah, that's just the
Okay.
original documentation that was
Okay.
provided.
Thank you.
Yeah, there were some items related to removing or reconfiguring windows on the rear of the house that were approved, but that one on the side was not included in that approval.
Okay. So we would still just be looking at continuing items 1 and 9. Oh, wait. Sorry, I think we might have an error in the staff report. It says continue items 1 and 9, and then underneath it says specific findings for items 1 and 2.
Oh, yep, should be 1 and 9.
1 and 9, okay. So we're looking at continuing that and approving the fence with the agreed upon condition that it does meet the guideline at 40% back. Is that correct?
That's what I'm
That-
hearing.
40% from the approach or 40% from the front of the house, which is the
40% from the front wall of the home, not the porch.
Yep.
So 40% back from the front-facing exterior wall of the home, but not of the porch.
Okay.
So if the house is 50 feet long, you're going to set the fence back 20 feet from the front wall.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Yes, sir.
Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th. I own the property immediately to the west. And I own roughly, I believe, I don't have a survey, roughly 2 feet of ground on the east side of the fence you see right there in the garage, okay? There is a manhole in the very back that's right on the property line, okay? And so, no, the one you read, that one right there, back. No, that, okay, you can see my fences and garage are right there. And I own 2 feet to the left of that, to the east of that, okay? And the proposal is to bring a gate in and connect it to my fence, which would basically lock me out of maintaining the side of my garage. I just don't want my property fenced in by the neighbor, all right? And also, the fence there is non-conforming. It was there when I bought the house. When I replace it, and it's a wooden fence, it's gonna have to be replaced fairly soon. I will bring it back and make it conforming, bring it all the way back to the 40% back, and I'll replace it with a wire fence, because that's more traditional in the neighborhood. There are many more wire fences than wooden fences. Wooden fences just became popular maybe in the last 20 years, but up until then, it was almost always wire or chain link. So that's what I would put back in. And so, in effect, I think you have to move this back 40%, but also recognize that it can't come over all the way to my fence, okay? There has to be, it has to be on the property line. And you shouldn't be able to fence somebody out from maintaining the side of their garage, because I have to paint that, all right? Now, that's separate from the neighborhood comments. You have the neighborhood comments, that's a different issue. Any questions?
That seems pretty reasonable.
I mean, my only question is just that I guess it's not a question, it's a statement. I mean, that is just like kind of that's a common occurrence in the neighborhood that, like for instance, my next door neighbor, 700 Northwest 15th, I mean, the entire side of her garage is in my yard. We don't have a fence, the Fellers and I don't have a fence separating that. So, I mean, I think that it's kind of a product of, quasi-urbanism, that you do have these shared driveways and fences, so I'm not really sure how to handle it because the fence currently exists where it exists.
But I think he's saying that he has additional property that the fence line is not actually on the property
Right.
line. So he's just
Totally.
requesting that her fence remain
On her property.
on the property line.
Do we need anything though to state, I mean, like, is that something we would need a PIN survey for? We've had an issue in HP kind of recently where we didn't have anything to do with it, but where somebody thought their property line was in one spot and it wasn't, and they built an actual pool on their neighbor's property line.
Any continuances on this? I mean, is that something we should ask the applicant and their neighbor to go back and look at?
I have no idea. This is kind of a new scenario for me, so
I
don't
wouldn't
know.
think it would need a continuance, because I think that that's not something, I mean, if somebody goes and builds something on your property, you go you ask them to take it down, or you go sue them. That's not something that we're dealing with. So, I mean,
yeah, we do not have the authority to authorize the applicant to do work on property that isn't hers.
Yeah.
So the CA is going to say the fence is approved on your property. And, we can certainly work with the applicant, work with the neighbor to try to ensure that it's in the appropriate location, but we don't typically make that a condition of approval. So, and I agree, generally it's kind of a civil matter between property owners to determine, okay, where is the property line, where can the fence go?
Well, the difficulty is she's putting a gate in too. So to get a painter back there, if she fences it off and puts a gate in, how do I maintain the side of my garage?
I think you guys need to work together, figure out and identify the property lines, and then, yep.
And again, she's wanting to do all this work. It doesn't seem that I should have to hire a surveyor when it appears pretty obvious to me that the manhole is the property line.
I didn't say you needed to hire the surveyor. I worked together, and she probably might already have a PIN survey. Who knows? But I mean, I think that's something that you guys should coordinate.
I mean, just like under the law, if you have a common fence, I mean, you should work together to make sure that fence is maintained. Here, work together to make sure that the fence is going in on the property line. I mean, have communication with your neighbor and try to work through this.
So it sounds like a continuance or even the approval of the fence, as long as it doesn't encroach on the neighbor's property line, is
Right, I
appropriate
think we
course of
can
action.
provide approval for the fence, we just state that,
Yeah.
you know, it's within the boundaries of her property.
Which protects you. Okay. Any other citizens that wish to be heard on this project? Okay, come on up. What other questions do we have for the applicant, if anything? Do we have a motion? Anybody like to-
I have a question for Katie.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it about the window information that's still retained, that you guys still need, that couldn't just be handled administratively?
I want to see if Angela wants to fill in the blanks on that. She's been working this one more closely than I have. I think we don't have good documentation on the replacement window products themselves.
We do not have, and I'm sorry, I don't have my staff report in front of me, guys. I have currently the exact same documentation that I started out with, and so those items that were missing from previous documentation remain missing. For the
What do you
windows
mean
that
is
are
remain
currently in
missing?
place, on the west, one is proposed for removal. I do not know which of those windows is proposed for removal. For those on the east, the documentation remains the same. Window number 15 remains proposed for removal, as far as I know. Documentation for the replacement windows is inadequate. It actually is a supplemental document that we have issued in the past to illustrate the parts of a window. And that documentation for the replacement windows that we do have is for the interior rather than the exterior. So we really have nothing that fully describes what the replacement windows will be. I have solid documentation that the two windows on the front are non-historic, easily replaceable. I have fairly solid documentation for at least two of the windows on the east that illustrate they are most likely deteriorated beyond repair. Beyond those, I'm not certain.
What do you mean by that? Like the photos we send are inside that like with the wood are rotten and then cannot be fixed?
Only two of those describe windows that cannot be repaired, as far as I can tell. I'm happy to meet with you and talk about those if you'd like.
Yes, okay.
So sounds like we're moving towards continuing items 1 and 9 and approving item 7 with the agreed upon condition that it meets guidelines with regard to where the fence begins on the side of the house and that it does not encroach on the neighbor's property. Is that correct? Okay. Well, then,
Can I just second what you just said?
I know.
We can continue to March 6th or to April 3rd.
Do you have a preference, March 6th or April 3rd for the next meeting?
I'll send you the documents instead. Is that? Okay,
March 6th?
that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so for HPCA 23-00147, I motion to continue items 1 and 9 to the March 6th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion was passed unanimously. Thank you.
Before I leave, I'm going to say something to the HB commissions and staff, everyone here.
We still have to make a motion on your second
Okay,
item. If we
sure.
can just do that really quickly and get
Yes.
through kind of the official part. So for, where am I? Where's the number? For HPCA 23-00147, a motion to approve item 7 with the agreed upon, with the unique circumstances cited in the staff report, but also with the agreed upon condition that it will meet setbacks as outlined in the guidelines and that it does not encroach on the neighbor's property line.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poor. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't want to cut you off, but I did
I
want to
thought
get
it's
through
okay.
official
I thought
business.
it's all at once, so.
That was also passed. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's my feedback. You know, I appreciate all your volunteer times here. It's the very lengthy process, and all of you are high-paying professionals working. So I just want to say, you know, we are in a very high technology time. Maybe it's time for you to think about invest in AI technology for the applications. Just take a photos, and they can split out the information. If this window's okay, these are the recommended brands, things like that. That would speed up a lot of process, just like Angela and Katie has a lot of experience, but in order to find someone to replace them, it's going to be very tough. And thank you again for your volunteer time. If you need any resources to find an AI company or anyone to rewrite the website, just let me know. We have one AI company in Oklahoma City right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, appreciate the comments. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, HPCA 23-00162 at 112 Northwest 15th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Scott Kaiserman for a certificate of appropriateness to, 1, construct 4 new townhomes elective. The commission has seen this a couple of times, both in review of the SPUD to rezone the property several months ago, and then in review of the application for the CA at a previous meeting. At this point, the applicant has revised some of the documents that we had some questions about before, just clarifying details and information. We have recommended an approval with some conditions. First, a couple of things that needed to still be addressed. We have a revised site plan showing a reduction in the amount of area covered, or we have a site plan that shows some areas indicated as pervious paving that in staff's understanding cannot actually be pervious, such as where the HVAC equipment will go. Those are going to have to sit on concrete pads. They are right on the edge of being at their pervious to impervious lot coverage, site coverage. So we just want to make sure we have all the accurate information about what's going to be pervious, impervious, and that they're within what's allowed by the SPUD. I think those were the only remaining items that we needed to be addressed. I think everything else was pretty well covered with what had been submitted, so.
Okay. So this, I'm sorry, Katie, the main thing is the pervious versus impervious nature of the project, and what was the other one?
I think that's it, just
Okay.
getting the site plan.
Okay.
Anything
So-
changed that needs to be changed to address that, and getting an accurate site plan that reflects all of that.
So ultimately, it sounds like the commission's not confident in what the information that's been submitted thus far. I mean, it sounds like a continuance would be in order to get all that information resubmitted and make sure that everybody's comfortable with the documentation at hand. Is that fair?
We did recommend approval of it with the
Okay.
condition that I don't think it's going to dramatically change anything about the design. I think it's just making those calculations and making sure everything is shown accurately.
And that's something they could just work with you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I don't know that I have any other questions. Do you guys have any other questions for the applicant?
I don't.
Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion? This might be the easiest one ever.
Sure. Yeah, I'll motion to approve item 1 of HPCA 23-00162 with the agreed upon conditions outlined in the staff report and the specific findings outlined in the staff report.
We have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Moved by Commissioner Jordan,
Such a
second by
complicated
Commissioner Whitley.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I totally skipped over one of the things that we noted in the conditions. It's been a bit since we prepared this and got this all out to you. And this may or may not be something that the commission thinks needs to be addressed. Along the north-southeast, along the east side of the building, where the alley will be functioning as the driveway, or as a drive, and then they'll be turning into the garages off the alley. That entire stretch of the side of the building is shown as pavers. Staff had commented that even though that is all indicated to be permeable, which would be the same as some other landscape material, it might be more visually appealing to break up some of those pavers with actual landscaping, with grass or landscape beds or something in between the individual driveways into the units. That was just a kind of comment, observation from staff. There's not a specific regulation related to that, but it would be just something for you all to discuss if you think that is a revision that needs to be made or if you're comfortable with the project as proposed. And I'll see if I can find an image that shows what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, it says in the specific findings that the pervious pavers will not be allowed as shown. Oh, that's just for the mechanical equipment.
And just in regards to that, we do plan on putting landscape over there on the east side with the pervious paving, just so you have a little bit of green going down that area.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of addressed in this specific finding number 9 that the applicant should provide clarification about the configuration of pervious and impervious paving materials as well as landscape areas in order to meet lot coverage requirements. So if we're attaching this as an agreed upon condition that they give you that, I still feel fine about it.
Okay, so we just need to get a revised site plan that's showing that landscaping to break up the pavers along the side.
Okay, so do I need to re-motion, or, I mean, I think I still feel comfortable with the motion because it is there in the staff report.
Are you comfortable with that, Katie? Or do you want us to revise the motion?
I guess what I would like is maybe perhaps a little more direction or a little more confirmation from the applicant what we mean by landscape material. Does that mean one tree next to each door? Does that mean a measurable, square foot area of landscape surface?
Talk us through that if you don't mind. What is your all's vision for the landscape?
I was wanting to put one tree, and they're similar to, they're tall, skinny. I believe they're sweet gums. No, that's, but it's not an evergreen tree, but you see, even down at the Wheeler area, you see quite a few of these.
And staff's concern is that, down the length of this entire side of the building is, other than with 4 trees, is just continuous concrete pavers. Even though you're going to have space between what would function as a driveway, what would function as the entryway into the individual townhome, the gate into the fenced area for the trash and the HVAC, that perhaps those pavers could be broken up with.
Almost on the left side of each one of the townhomes, kind of what you're saying, Katie?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, could we stipulate a percentage, say like 20% of the area in front of each townhome becomes landscape?
Well, did the SPUD not have a specific?
So the SPUD has permeable, impermeable. All of this is already permeable. I mean, they're permeable pavers, so they're already meeting those requirements. My staff's concern was really more of the visual effect of having a continuous line of just paving down the side of the building.
So does specific finding number 9 need to be a condition rather than a finding? Would that satisfy you if that was put in as a 3rd condition?
Well, I think that's just clarifying what they're doing to confirm that they meet coverage requirements. It's not necessarily making a change to the design the way that's currently written.
But that's covered by condition 1 right now, right? The proposal to
Yes.
put a new landscape, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about the side with the garage doors, we're talking about the other side, the other image that you were showing, the side on the north, or, well, on the top of the picture.
I am talking about the bottom of, oh, sorry, it's not showing my screen anymore.
Are you guys comfortable installing landscape features in a place that we're kind of suggesting at this point to help break all that
I
up?
mean, for me, as much as I can add greenery, I prefer to do that. And I like that we are doing some permeable, but I'm happy to work with Historic Commission about that.
Do we need to cite a specific amount of green space that we're trying to provide here?
I don't think we, first, I don't think we could, because I don't know what that math would be at this moment. I don't think we need to. I think if the applicant's amenable to working with staff on revising the site plan to show more landscape, I'm comfortable with that.
So then we're still covered with the original
Yep,
motion
I
because
think
it
so.
says, okay.
So on this picture, which side? I'm still not clear.
So I am referring to the bottom of the picture, which is the east side. The right side is facing north,
Which is the garage side.
which is the
There's the
garage side. So you would be driving down that concrete alley and then turning in at each of those garage doors.
And you're hoping to see some landscape
Hoping to see
features,
some landscaping to break up the paving, yeah.
almost at the back of the stairwell where the garage, to the left of the garage. Or the back of the entryway, to the left of the garage.
Yeah, but kind of between the garage and the pedestrian door, if that's possible, or between the pedestrian door and the, just something in there that kind of, I guess, defines a driveway instead of it just being one continuous expansion of the alley all the way up to the wall of the building.
And just to shed some light on it, that's where I would put it, between the drive and the pedestrian doorway, because also our gutter's going to go down there, so have somewhat of a watering system as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, I think we just need to vote because I think
Yep.
it's been seconded.
Okay, that item passes unanimously with conditions. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, HPCA 2300166 at 927 Northwest 19th Street. Is the applicant present?
This is Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Brian Waltz, BMG Properties LLC, for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace driveway elective, and 2, replace front porch elective. I think staff didn't have any real concerns about the proposal to replace the driveway as shown. The kind of interesting thing with this project is they have a front, what I would call a stoop, that we don't believe to be historic. The Sanborn maps show a front porch extending across the full width of the house, and they've proposed to go back to a full width front porch. Staff had no concerns about expanding the width of the front porch. What was a challenge is the roof form. The existing roof form is quite distinctive, and we've looked up some different terminology. A colleague said they would call them oriel skirts or bay window skirts, but it arcs out around the bays on the roof, and as it currently exists would not be as deep as a typical front porch. So the applicant has proposed to extend that porch roof so that it would be an appropriate depth for a front porch extending across the full width of the house. We typically are very protective of roof forms, including front porch roof forms. When we don't have documentation of something having existed there previously, we tend to defer to keeping what's there and assuming that that's historic. Based on changes that the applicant has documented on the interior of the property, based on the work that clearly has been done over the years to the front porch, we do think it may be reasonable to expect that this roof has been altered at some point. So you have, I believe, a recommendation to approve the replacement of the driveway with conditions, just our standard kind of conditions about water directing away from buildings and paving having appropriate color appearance. And then we recommended continuance on the front porch. If the commission feels that modifying that roof is a reasonable change to make to the property based on existing conditions and the proposed design, then you could certainly change that to an approval.
I think just right out of the gates, I don't have any major issue with modifying the roof line. And, yeah, I was going to say my position first. Sorry, I'll stop. Please state your name and address for the records.
My name's Brian Walls, 927 Northwest 19th Street. This is Chris Glenn. He'll answer any technical questions you have. But yeah, I'd like to extend the roof out. I don't think it's original because there's some pictures I believe you guys have of the inside of the house. In between those two bay windows, there's actually a door frame in there with a header. And then also, before I painted it, you could see an outline of a door was right there in the middle. So I don't believe that was original. And my proposal is I'll keep the barrels, as Angela called them, exactly how they are, and I'll just extend the roof out, like a kick out, as she called it. So I'll keep the historical look of it. And I'll be able to cover the porch.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't have any major issues or concerns with any of it. I tend to, and based off what the information that's been provided, tend to agree with you. It does appear that this was not the original roof based off that door to nowhere. To me, I feel like, extending the porch actually creates a little more consistency within the neighborhood. So I feel like there's enough unique circumstances here to warrant a change, but that's only my opinion. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions?
I agree, and I also just I agree with you, and I agree with the proposal, and I also just wanted to call attention to the fact that while Mesta Park, so they said that they would equally support an approval of the porch portion. So, and that's pretty uncommon, I think, for a neighborhood to say we would support this even without further info. So to me, I think it's a big green light and would be really happy to see it done.
I agree. All of that.
Any citizens wish to speak on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 23-00166. Approve item 1 and approve item 2 with the specific findings and conditions.
I don't think we need specific findings on item 2 because staff recommended a continuance.
So we probably want to put you on the spot and have you craft your own findings if you can, or if you can tweak the existing ones in there.
Fair enough. Approve item 1 with specific findings and conditions, and approve item 2. We say that it's kind of unique conditions?
Unique circumstance
Unique
that we don't have
circumstances?
historical documentation.
Yeah, with unique circumstances that we don't have the historical documentation, and we believe that it's been altered over the years.
Okay, I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Whitley, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item passes unanimously. It's approved with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, HPCA 24-00003 at 1417 Northwest 35th Street.
This is in Putnam Heights, Ward 2. Consideration of possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus, Jolly Design, for Michael and Emily Fagan for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage, elective, 2, construct 2-story addition, elective, 3, construct 1.5-story garage, elective, and 4, construct covered walkway and covered front entrance, elective. Staff did recommend a continuance on this application as a whole. There are concerns regarding the kind of the design and the proportion of the proposed addition. The garage, there is a proposed connection from the addition to the garage, which is not something that we typically approve. The typical condition is a true detached garage. And then we don't, kind of similar to this last one, there's a proposed cover at the front entrance that we don't have any historic documentation to suggest that it was not, that it was historically covered. So.
Okay, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Fallon Brooks Magnus, 4312 North Classen.
So lots of
And the applicant?
lots of concerns from staff in terms of the overall documentation. Can you kind of just walk us through their challenges and then your all's approach to rectifying those.
Sure, yeah. So I will start with the front porch. So you can't tell from these photos, but we had quite a lengthy justification letter that explained the door is so rotted out from being exposed to the weather for so long. We're asking to replace that, and we had suggested, putting some kind of an awning, thinking that it would be enough of a condition to allow that. So that's that one. The garage, also in that report, there are no footings or curbing or anything, and the entire thing is sort of settling around the outside. The entire slab inside has gaps that are 2 to 3 inches, and you can kind of see where the roof line's bowing there. But yeah, so that's it on the garage. And then on the addition, if we go back a couple, on the addition, the reason I know that staff didn't like that we had such a large addition, we're over our allotted size for an addition. We wanted to have minimal contact with the existing structure to, one, make it not visible from the street, and also to limit how much of the actual historic home we're cutting into to add on. So that creates some design constraints that sort of ended up making us a little bit over the footprint. We felt that was justifiable because if you look at the house next door and go back to the aerial and see it, we estimate that the house next door is like 80% plus lot coverage. Our lot coverage with the addition ends up being around 37%, so we're well below the 50% that would be allowed in this is a historic neighborhood, so it's not R1, but it would be likely an R1 if it weren't historic. So we kind of went with that. So we're well below that number. Yeah, I'll answer questions.
What questions do we have for the applicant?
While everyone's reviewing, I'll just note that we can administratively approve, I think, awnings, fabric awnings at doors where they never existed historically. So if that doesn't get approved, that is another option for you.
Okay.
That's probably a lot cheaper.
Yeah, no, we like that.
Like
Okay.
a comment from me as well that I thought that would be a really good solution and look really appropriate and nice right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe not cover up the really cool detail at the front of the house so much.
I mean, I can certainly see where you're going with the garage demo, and I'm not really necessarily, I think there's like too many unanswered questions on the remainder of the submission, but I don't know that I would be opposed to, I would want some more info, but I just don't think I would necessarily be opposed to the demolition of the garage. I think it's needing info on the full packet and the full application. It looks like staff's missing quite a bit. I don't know if I could ever really go with a covered walkway as much as I would love to have one myself. I think that's
wish list
really
item.
nice looking. I just don't think there's any justification for saying that, yes, we can create a unique circumstance in here to get that approved. It's really cute.
Specifically, what information is, other than material, there were some material selections, and that's often a problem I have because I don't often know what my builder can get and what the cost of that might be. So I can spec something and it may cost a fortune, and then the client has to come back and get it approved by staff anyway. So that's why some of those materials are missing, but for the most part, it's a pretty standard submission on materials. So I'm happy to answer any questions that we feel like that the packet doesn't address.
I think the materials were the primary thing that were missing. I think everything else was design-related items that didn't meet the guidelines, that staff didn't have a justification for, that either need to be, either the case needs to be made for why that's appropriate, or it needs to be revised to meet the guidelines. So, you mentioned some of them, that the addition is larger than what the guidelines would support. I think we had some issues with window design on the addition itself and just kind of the massing, proportion, fenestration patterns on the addition itself. I think we needed to be able to verify that the garage meets the requirements for a 1.5-story. Yeah, it was things like that.
On this proposed front elevation where you're showing, you know, your requested front door covering, is that what the proposed front elevation, including that addition, would look like? I was kind of having trouble reconciling that. Like, would you be able to see the addition, at the proposed addition at all from the front?
No, in order to actually see the addition at all from the public right-of-way, you have to go all the way over to Classen. So you can see it, you would be able to see it from southbound Classen, but actually standing in front of the house, you can't see it.
Is there a reason that there are no, sorry, I think I'm just misreading this proposed rear north elevation. Is the back structure the garage and I'm just not seeing the walkway from this elevation?
Yeah, it's hard. These did not print.
I
right.
know,
So you can see that bottom window that's showing in the middle there? That line that's running across, that's got like a little pitch notification on it, that's the actual covered walkway.
That right there.
Okay.
So you can see there's like a darker
Okay.
line in between those two dashed lines. And that's the top of the roof for the walkway.
How far over the maximum, how far over the maximum square footage are you guys on the addition?
So we are sitting at 976, and our allowable would be 750. I know that seems like a lot. Realistically, we would have to cut, it's only like 6 feet off of the back of the whole thing, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this is pretty low lot coverage. So
You're
really,
stating-
It's a big lot too, right? I mean,
it's huge. It's like 14,000 square feet, yeah.
I guess I see that as maybe a unique circumstance in terms of the exceeding the square footage. Although I will say I'm generally not the person that loves it when we go over square footage on anything, so maybe you're just catching me on a good day.
I would say it's also justifiable because if you look at the aerial, you can see that every other house on the block is larger or has way more lot coverage. I'm just going to keep pointing to the house next door. It's in excess of 80%. Like, it's absurd. And it's newer construction. I think it was built in the 90s. It's pretty bad.
I'm not opposed to the size. What's the justification for the 1.5-story garage versus the 1-story that's currently in place?
Just extra space.
Is there anything that, what in the guidelines, Katie, does it say for, I know we've talked about this,
It's allowed.
but what, is there something specific that we would say, gosh, this is pretty black and white? Can't do that.
Say a 1.5-story garage, A 1.5-story garage should approximate the look of a 1-story garage. And then the thing that I think we didn't have anything documenting, and Fallon, forgive me if we've got it and I'm not remembering, but there's a specific requirement about the height of the wall from the,
Yes.
basically the floor to where it meets the roof, and then that only a certain percentage of the footprint of that half-story can be usable space.
Yep.
So typically we get like a second floor plan that shows where that usable space is going to be, where the roof line's going to come down so close to the floor that you can't
So to
use
be
that
considered
area.
a half-story, that pony wall above the platform frame on the second floor would have to be 3 feet or less, and we're at 3 feet.
Okay.
Which you can see on A16.
Yeah, and it does state that the proposed, in the specific findings, number 7 states that the proposed size of the garage meets the allowable size for new garages, which you guys could just be talking about the footprint, but if you're not, I would say like that might need further clarification as a finding. I mean, it feels like we're still lacking quite a bit. I don't know that there would be any way to support the covered walkway. I would say like just take this feedback and bring it back.
We're willing to take off the front porch cover and the walkway and come back for the fabric awning that you guys were talking about. We love that
I don't
suggestion.
think you'd need to come back here just to
I
staff.
think
Oh,
I
is
think we can
that's
just do that.
administratively approvable?
Yeah, I think so. And I think staff's other big biggest concern was the windows on the addition, that we've got kind of very modern looking kind of slider picture frame fixed windows that are just not consistent with the historic windows on the house. And they don't necessarily have to match the windows on the house. The guidelines talk about windows in new construction being a simplified version, but
Would it be more preferable if they were 1/1s instead of fixed?
I think if they were hung windows, that would be more in keeping with the style of the house.
So just to clarify, does that mean that you want windows with muntins? Or just in terms of proportion and scale of the actual window comparatively to the main residence?
For staff, I think it's pretty common for us to see additions that do not have divided light windows, even when the house has a divided light window. But I think having proportions, window configuration, if it's a hung window or a casement window or that sort of thing, that, if the house, from what I'm looking at on the elevation, we don't have a lot of grouped windows, but that is a more typical historic pattern to have windows in pairs and, sets of 2, sets of 3, where we've got all just kind of little individual punched opening looking windows. I would just look at the windows on the house, the windows on the houses around you, and see what can be tweaked to make those a little more in keeping with that character.
Okay, do we have a motion? Roll.
Some of the window placement was design constraint, so I'm not sure how to alleviate that, but we can, I think if we just change the dimensions of them and make them operable 1/1s, would that be, do you think, more acceptable? Because I don't know that I can change the groupings,
Yeah, I think that's going in the right direction.
Okay.
And if you want to follow up and hop on Teams and look at it together, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prefer 1/1s versus 6/6?
I don't know that I have a preference, but I think a 1/1 is appropriate, is acceptable.
Let's check in. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, good. Not good, but we can move the project along.
March 6th or April 3rd?
March 6th. Is there any way that we could get forward momentum on the garage demolition so that we can start, or
I
are
don't
we
think
wanting to
staff
see
was
what the
comfortable
final?
with the information we currently have, correct?
So specifically, what further documentation do you want on the garage?
Let me,
It mentioned something about citing steps that have been taken to try to repair it versus, you've cited specific damage, but not necessarily proven the case for it cannot be salvaged and repaired.
And anything could be salvaged if you want to spend lots of money. So that's
I guess for
the
me,
problem with this. We can. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, just more photographic documentation would work for me. Looking at it from these photographs, I look at it, I'm like, oh, it looks like it's pretty good shape. Looks like a normal garage in a historic neighborhood.
Until you go inside,
That's
and
what
all
I'm-
the sill plates are rotten.
I would have
all the
liked to.
studs.
I'd like to see that stuff.
You'd like to see? Okay. There is a design, the justification that was several pages. I don't know if it got updated when we resubmitted. So
It's in here somewhere, I think.
Did you have something on this?
No, I was just going to say that I didn't have, to me, adequate documentation that showed that it was beyond repair, so that any parts or aspects of the garage that can be replaced, I wasn't sure what those could be or what steps that they had already taken, so I was curious about that.
yeah, I think probably just more photos, getting some more,
Oh,
every
Yeah, I
kind of
think we
nook and
could get
cranny.
there.
I'm sorry. It's all in there. It looks pretty bad. I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
there's like a 3.5 inch crack in the slab, multiple cracks, and I'm an architect. I know a little more what to look for in some of the pictures, so I can clearly see rotting sill plates and where the roof is bowing and it's sinking down in corners. But if staff needs a few more, maybe just like zoom in to some of those locations to just make it a little bit more clear. But I think pretty bad condition, so I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, to me, I'm more concerned about what goes back, and I was, you know, if we were gonna move this further along today, a big question I had was, you know, is the addition so large so that we can maybe justify this walkway to connect it to the garage? I didn't know if we were trying to like, you know, kind of stretch back there. So I didn't know like what relevance, you know, how big a role does this garage play in the overall project? I mean, I would feel comfortable with the demo based on what we can see because I understand everything you're saying, and it's not architecturally outstanding. It's a really beautiful home with, you know, a pretty normal garage, but I would, you know, want to just pay careful attention to what goes back.
Michael Fagan, property owner, 1417 Northwest 35th. The purpose of this project was the garage. I mean, it's in terrible shape. There's 3 or 4 inch cracks throughout the whole thing. So that expanded to how do we get our money back if we replace the garage? So then we started talking about a above garage apartment, which is the reason for the 1.5 story garage. Also a golf simulator instead of a apartment. And then we talked about the add-on. So you asked about the purpose of it. But really, the garage is not salvageable, in my opinion.
I'd be comfortable with an approval on the demolition of the garage today, if other commissioners would also be comfortable with that.
What was staff not seeing? You know, it feels like we're in really big conflict with staff, which I don't love. Like, what were y'all, we're
Sure,
looking
no,
at this
I
going,
mean,
we have
I
everything
would-
we need.
I would, you know, just in short, I would say we have 4 pictures of the inside of the garage. Typically, when someone proposes a garage demo, we get like 20 pictures. We get all the interior walls. We get, you know, kind of just a more comprehensive photo survey of the inside and outside of the structure. I agree, it looks really bad. These are massive cracks. I mean, I don't disagree at all that the condition is not good. We just usually get a more thorough, kind of like when we do windows and we do a window survey, we want to see every window, we want to understand all the nooks and crannies and the issues and what's wrong, so that we just have that documentation on file. So, but certainly, if you all, in your experience and expertise and knowledge and what you can see in the photos, feel comfortable approving demolition, it's not, you know, staff is not going to be hurt or offended if you move forward with that today.
Just wanted to make sure there was nothing really obvious that we were missing here that, you know, was explaining kind of the difference in opinion there. But yeah, I would feel comfortable with that personally, continuing the other items, letting you go back to staff for an administrative approval on the door awning, or, you know, whichever route y'all decide to go with that, or bring it back if you still really want to go there, go the proposed route. So I would make a motion to...
I just want to say, I would like to see the additional documentation on the garage for staff. I just wanted to say that.
So to
because
bring
that-
it, not to bring it back to commission, or to, I mean, we could make an agreed upon condition
yeah.
that...
Is that okay, Katie? I just want to make sure you've got the paperwork and we're staying consistent to what we're asking, what you're asking other applicants to do, that we're asking all future applicants to
Okay.
do as well. Can that be done where we can
Yeah,
approve
you
it,
could
but
approve the demolition of the garage with the condition that additional photo documentation of the structure be submitted to staff.
and they get their certificate when that
Yeah.
criteria has been met,
Yep,
correct?
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I like that.
For HPCA 24-00003, I would motion to, oh, sorry, I have to go back to the top. I would motion to approve item 1 with the agreed upon condition that comprehensive photo documentation of the existing garage conditions be provided to staff, and that none of it, you know, that staff feels none of it is in conflict with the documentation that was provided today.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. The demolition was passed unanimously and approved with conditions. Thank you.
We'll see you guys next month.
Oh, hang on, we have to continue your other things.
Oh, okay.
And do you want, with regard to item 4, the front entrance, like, do you want to strike that and come
Yeah,
back?
go ahead and strike that,
Okay, because it's lumped in with the walkway for some reason.
and we can strike that too. Well,
Okay.
that's,
I think we should.
Yeah, I
strike
just
them
feel like
both.
that's a
It
battle
is,
we're not
it's
gonna
a-
ever win.
Okay, what do we need a motion to strike? Do we deny it?
Oh, we can just record that as having been withdrawn by the applicant.
Okay.
Y'all don't have to do anything.
Okay, so for HPCA 24-00003, I motion to continue items 2 and 3 to the March 6th meeting, and with the specific findings cited in the staff report. Not all of those are relevant to items 2 and 3 because we've gone a different route on items 1 and 4.
When we continue items, we usually don't include
Okay,
findings.
so it's just
okay,
continued.
Yeah.
There you go. Well,
Okay.
it's about
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. All right, the continuance is also passed unanimously.
Thank you. Now I will see you next month.
Now we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Moving on to item number 7, HPCA 24-00004 at 1715 North Hudson.
This is Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Brent Wall, Lod Studio, for Christopher White for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct pool elective, 2, construct fence elective, 3, install mechanical equipment elective, and 4, replace existing tile on rear porch elective. Staff has recommended approval with conditions on this application. The conditions in your staff report relate to the tile that was originally proposed for the back porch. Since the staff report was drafted, we did communicate with the applicant. We found some historic photos that show the front porch with a darker, small kind of clay tile, and they've already agreed to use a tile that matches what was on the front porch. So that condition could actually, I think, be just stricken. And then we did recommend approval with unique circumstances for the other items. We also got the fully dimensioned site plan. That's part of one of the conditions that was included in there. Sorry, some last minute back and forth with this applicant on getting everything. And then for the fence specifically, we recommended approval with the unique circumstance that the proposed fence's placement, height, transparency, and relationship to the neighboring property will minimize or eliminate any adverse effects caused by locating the fence forward of the neighboring property's front porch. We have just a handful of properties like this throughout the district where a corner house faces the side street and backs up to houses facing the cross street. That means that their side yard and backyard interact with their neighbor's front yard, and it makes it very difficult to place a fence because that fence is, the guidelines say the fence should be behind the front porch of the neighboring house. I was doing some Google Street View research today and found that we have just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have about 8 houses that have this corner side configuration. Some of them are adjacent to other houses that also have the same. They both face Hudson, so that interaction doesn't really exist. There's a couple of them that have no fence, such as the Overholscher Mansion, so they haven't had to deal with where to put a fence. 3 of them have fences somewhat similar to what's proposed here. They're lower, they're wrought iron, transparent. They do come forward of their neighbor's front porch, but I think the height and the transparency helps with that to not feel like it is imposing upon the neighboring house. And then I only identified one with a solid brick fence wall that is abutting, the neighboring house and is well forward of that neighboring house. So what they've proposed seems to have been over time kind of the solution that people have come up with, but it is not consistent with where the guidelines would say their fence should be located. So we wanted the commission to consider that very carefully and determine whether those unique circumstances warranted approval. I will also note the fence placement is based on a couple of things from discussion with the applicant. It's having a usable amount of enclosed yard space for the homeowner. It is somewhat driven by the location of the lovely mature tree there. The fence has to go on one side or the other of that tree. And then, of course, the proposed pool has to be fenced in. So the fence has to go somewhere to enclose the the pool. So with that, any questions for staff, or the applicant is present?
Okay. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Brent Wall, 220 Northwest 13th Street, Suite 1, Oklahoma City.
Perfect. Talk to us about some of the challenges that that staff has noted and kind of reasoning for it and all that good stuff, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I think Katie kind of did all the work for me. So she stole all my thunder, but I'll go through it again. As per usual, we are presented with a challenging corner lot in Heritage Hills. It seems to be that we're kind of the fixers for these kinds of properties. Hopefully we're trying to do them well. I thought I would just walk through sort of the thought process on how we ended up where we are. And Katie's help last week was, it really kind of sort of solidified things and was very helpful for us to come forward today. So our clients are moving into the house pretty soon. They do have pets, and so I think that's one that seems to be an increasing rationale for fencing, is that a lot of folks just have dogs these days. Not comparing their grandchildren to dogs, but they have grandchildren as well that they would like to keep somewhat contained in the backyard. So, you know, they came to us and said, here's kind of the mandate. We would really like to have a pool. And they have been the best clients I've ever had in terms of wanting to protect their trees. They're like, we're moving to this part of Oklahoma City because we love the trees. And if anything we propose to do is going to take out a tree, we're not going to do it. So I have very rarely had a client be so hardline. They're saying we would rather not have a pool than remove a single tree on this site. So it was really kind of a little bit refreshing. So we started out actually looking on the south side of this property. There's an image in your package, I believe, of you can see the sunken garden. So we kind of started out over there, and we thought, okay, this is it's side yard, but we can put it back from the front of the house. And then the more we looked at this location, one, we would be taking out what we feel like is a really nice landscape feature that has a lot of potential. And two, the fencing started getting a little difficult. And mostly that porte cochere there is open right now, and it would require infilling each one of those bays with the fence, which we didn't like. We'd have to come across the front, and then we'd have to have a driveway gate any way we went. So we just kind of felt like it just didn't feel right to infill those bays. It just kind of felt a little hodgepodgey. And so that kind of the case started building against that, and then so we moved to the west side and north side of the house. And so as Katie illustrated, we then knew that we were going to be getting into this area where we were going to be proud of the neighbor's porch. But as she noted, we did sort of do case studies and try to look at every house on Hudson that faced Hudson and just how they had handled that fence in each situation. The other thing we did is we talked to the neighbor to the north, because we really felt like it was really important to have their buy-in, and we've kept them really highly engaged during the process. And they saw the HP application before we sent it in, so we wanted to make sure, and they were like, okay, we feel like this is a good solution. They felt okay with it. So again, we're just trying to get enough space for the pool and just carve out a little bit of green space for their pets. I can say this house is design-wise on the west side, the porch is really odd. The way the steps come off at an angle, and then they just sort of deliver you out into this large sea of concrete, this kind of drive court. It's just, it really addresses the drive and not the landscape. And so that, even what we came up with in the end is it's not the most elegant solution. If I had my way, I would, or hopefully somebody in the past would have had these steps kind of stepping out into the yard and in place of the driveway. But we kind of have what we have to deal with. So at this point, I don't really have a lot more to add to that. We always want to come in and give you our thought process and just sort of the process of how we try to look at these problems and how we arrive at each one of them. And so, you know, if I maybe would have recommended taking that magnolia out, you know, if it was in the way of doing something, but again, they were kind of like, no way, they didn't want to do that. So I would also note too that I think at one point there was discussion of a stucco fence, and they actually kind of came down from that, and they were like, we don't really see that we need something that sort of heavy and permanent. So the fencing system that we proposed could very easily be removed at any time in the future if a future homeowner just didn't need the fence. So it is definitely not a permanent fence that's going in there right now. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Quite frankly, I don't have a whole lot of issues with this particular project. I guess I am curious, what is the neighbor to the left of this photograph? Have you visited with them, or is that the ones you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, that would be to the west. Yeah, we've spoken with those neighbors.
So when you reference the neighbors to the north, that's really the same neighbor
yeah.
because of the lot.
Yeah, neighbor to the west, I'm sorry, yes.
And
North would be across the street.
They're supportive of the project, all that good stuff too? Okay.
Yeah. We are coincidentally actually working on the house directly next door to the south, and so here in a couple of months you'll see that project, and so we're kind of trying to marry these two properties up as we go. So they have also seen this, and so the neighbors directly next door to this property have all indicated that they are supportive of it.
I think based off the way the house sits, I think there's certainly unique enough circumstances here to justify a fence in what I would say is the side yard, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a really huge lot to not be able to have a pretty decent amount of fenced green space to use, and whether, I don't, like the dog argument, the pool argument, that's not really what resonates with me. I just do believe that you should be able to have some sort of like secured back area when you have this much space to play with. I'm also a person who would probably sacrifice having a pool to save my big nice trees, so I really can appreciate why and where everything is laid out. I know that saving that tree pushes the fence either, in a direction where they're gonna have to shrink everything down and have a smaller area, or kind of out where it's not technically allowable, but I really like the idea of saving the tree, so I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree as well. I know the neighborhood association had some questions or concerns about the fence, but it's such a small amount of fencing. Like, it's not like it goes across the entire lot. And you've got, trees in front of it anyway, so I'm
It's
not.
4 feet high. Is
Yeah.
it 4 feet high? Is that right?
Yeah, it's fairly short, and there's a fairly significant grade change from the sidewalk up to the backyard, and so that allowed us to not have to build, a super tall fence in that area.
Would you guys be opposed to, typically what we see in those types of areas is kind of a low iron fence? Is that something you guys would be willing to do?
That's what we have
Oh,
proposed,
perfect,
yeah.
good.
I'm
Yeah,
curious, because after reading the neighborhood comments, it seems everything kind of goes along with the comments everybody's already said except the fencing. I'm just wondering if anybody from the neighborhood has any comments on the fencing that's being proposed right now.
Or any concerned citizens
Yeah.
that wish to speak on the project?
I do feel like what's proposed is pretty respectable in terms of like we want a pool and we want something enclosed, but we're going to go as minimal as possible, and it's pretty nondescript. Like that grade change is so significant. I mean, it's hard to walk up that hill from the sidewalk.
Yeah, it
So-
seems like they've taken really good care to try to minimize that as much as possible. And I agree with you, Sarah, like they should be able to have some enclosed space in their yard. But
Some of you probably remember the Fellers case from, 3 or 4 years ago?
Marva, can you state your name
Oh,
and address
Marva
for the
Eller,
record?
1521 North
Thank you.
Chartel.
Not that we don't know you, but
Maybe I should make a little sign.
yeah.
We just want consistency in things. I mean, the Fellers found another house and moved, and they're still in the neighborhood, and we're still friends, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and we just want consistency. And we recognize that these are unique houses and there's only a handful of them. I've gotten way too many texts and phone calls about this one for some reason, and part of it is about parking. And so I might need Brent to explain that, because some of the neighbors that have contacted me don't understand where there's still gonna be parking and how much parking there's gonna be, and I was trying to read the site plan. I don't disagree that it still leaves a lot of room on the side, but I do think the commission needs to consider, is this an equitable treatment of this house as compared to the treatment of the house that was a block away? I think some of the difference is that the pool and everything is pretty much behind the house. It doesn't creep out on the side. We had that discussion for quite some time with the Morris house at 14th and Hudson. Can we get it all behind the house? Because they had such a big side yard and things. So part of what our committee's concerned and the neighborhood's concern is that, are we treating all these people the same? So if Brent doesn't mind, could you explain parking a little bit?
Thank you.
Parking should not change here. So the driveway comes in off of Hudson, it goes through the porte cochere, and then it goes into this drive sort of parking court here in the back. We are not proposing to alter that at all. So it would pretty much stay the same. We did study it, but we found that really to maneuver around back there, you really need just about every square inch of that concrete to sort of pull in and pull out. So that should not change at all.
And I just want to speak to, kind of the consistency factor, which I understand and respect. And, we've had several of these corner lot cases. I think visibility is so paramount in these corner houses. I think that's the big concern all of the time. This is so minimally visible. I mean, it's, even when you're looking at what is being added back there that would be facing 17th Street, I mean, that is such a small stretch of, new substance. But I do, I understand the Morris house was just a couple of blocks away, and that I wasn't on the commission when the Feller's house came through, but this is just, to me, if it was visible, I'd have an entirely different opinion of it, but it's not.
Also, didn't we approve a project of yours 2 or 3 months ago where we did add in a solid fence on a large corner lot?
That was a big double lot, yeah.
So you could argue that this is being consistent with that one.
So is this the house you're referring to, Marva? Okay. So I think one of the big issues with this one that for staff was very different than what's proposed is that you can see that yard slopes down toward the garage, and they were proposing a pretty significant change in grade, retaining wall, masonry, fencing. It was just a much more dramatic change to the entire site. And that was, I think, what kept kind of pushing it to a continuance, and ultimately that one was withdrawn. Whereas for this one, we're not seeing any change in grade. I mean, other than the pool itself, of course, and work to do that, but we're not seeing retaining walls from the street. We'll only be seeing the transparent fence, and that fence will be screened by landscaping that really they could go out and install the landscaping without a CA. So, could the proposed backyard features be smaller and the fence be pulled in closer? Yes, I think that's doable. I think that's a conversation that can be had. But I felt as far as the impact of this project on the site, it was very different from some of the other ones we've seen where they were going to be completely altering the topography of the yard to try to accomplish what they were going for.
Yeah, I think the impact from any right-of-way is extremely minimal.
Marva Ellard again. This is not aimed at this applicant. This was a comment I got from a couple of people who called, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but people in the right spirit say they'll be wrought iron fences or whatever, and then they'll come back and they'll put up those panels on them of the black screeny stuff. And, you know, they just zip tie it up there, but it changes the whole appearance of it when you drive through the neighborhood. And I know that's probably considered a temporary deal, and I don't know that we can do anything about it, but the neighbors are noticing, and it's not very attractive.
No, it's not.
So
I notice it. I'm a neighbor who notices it. It's not very attractive.
No.
I don't like it either. Now, fortunately, one nice thing about this is that they did actually submit their landscaping. So if this is approved, they will actually have to install it, and it won't be visible if they put up something like that or anything else we don't want to see. But
no, and
I agree.
it's not aimed after this, but we've had a couple that did get CAs recently that have done that. And so, and I don't know if we just write them a nice letter or if there's anything we can do about it. But if Katie or staff have any recommendations on that, we'd appreciate it.
Feel free to send us addresses where people are doing that,
Okay.
and we can look into it.
Okay.
Because I am not aware.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's kind of rampant.
And Katie, I'm assuming the fencing that is being proposed, this 4-foot metal fencing, meets the guidelines? Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this particular project? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make one. I was trying to pull up exactly, I think we have a condition that needs to be stricken, maybe two. We need to strike the condition on approving items 1 and 3 because that's been satisfied, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then.
I think you could just approve the staff report with unique circumstances, but not the conditions, because both the conditions have been met.
Okay. Alrighty. For HPCA 24-00004, I would motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the unique circumstances and specific findings cited in the staff report.
I'll second
We
that.
have a second. Moved by Commissioner Jordan. I think, did I hear Whitley?
Yep.
Second by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that project was passed unanimously, approved with conditions.
Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to item number 7, other business. We've got 2 items for Board of Adjustment. Looks like BOA 15520 at 612 Northwest 25th Street. Is the applicant present? There we
Yes,
go.
so this is Paseo Ward 2, consideration and possible action and application by Blake Owen to request a recommendation from Historic Preservation Commission to Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow for home sharing. This is in the HL overlay, so our typical provisions about it needing to be owner occupied and the owner be present at the time of home sharing do not apply in the HL overlay. They appear to meet all applicable criteria. They're not proposing any modifications to the structure as part of the home share. I forget, one of these is a renewal of an existing home share. Is that this one?
612 is the renewal.
The renewal. So we have previously recommended approval of this one. They have to get their home share special exception renewed from Board of Adjustment, so staff's recommending approval.
Okay. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? What questions do we have from, I would be supportive of an approval.
I mean, typically, if we don't get any sort of neighborhood response from a home share, I'm inclined
I
to
think
just
we
move
just had one
along.
letter of support.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know,
there we go.
For both.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve BOA 15520.
Can we approve it, or are we
Or
just making?
recommending approval.
Recommendation.
Recommend approval?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. That item was passed unanimously. And we can move on to item number 2, or B, BOA 15527 at 608 Northwest 25th Street.
So this one is next door to the one you just recommended approval of, same owner, same situation. Staff has recommended a recommendation of approval.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion, well, it's a recommendation, right?
Yep, motion to recommend approval.
Motion to recommend BOA 15527.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Milner, second by Commissioner Poore. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you.
Okay, that item was passed as well. Thank you. Let's see, what do we need to do with administrative approvals? Anything we need to do with administrative approvals?
No action to be taken. Always feel free to reach out to staff if you have questions about anything you see here. And we had no withdrawals. We had a couple of administrative closings. These are items that the applications just never moved forward, never submitted all the required information to be able to proceed. I will note that 419 Northwest 25th has just submitted a new application for the same thing. So we'll be going back to the beginning with that one again, but that's what those are. Nothing to report at this time from City Council or Board of Adjustment. I didn't get this in the agenda, but the SPUD at 30th and Hudson goes to Planning Commission tomorrow. It has been heard previously and was continued. So
okay,
that's all from me.
Rita, anything from the Municipal Counselor's Office? Okay. The next regularly scheduled meeting date for the historic.
You didn't ask the commissioners. Is today your last meeting?
Nope.
It's March.
March.
Okay, just making sure.
Anything?
I think we can still work on him though, you know. Maybe get a couple
let's see,
more
are there
meetings
any-
out of him.
Yeah, I've got to read the next meeting date. Then I ask for items from commission.
Oh, well. I
So-
felt like you're trying to squeeze on by there.
I might be trying to do that too. The next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, March 6th at 2 p.m. in the Municipal Building, City Council's chamber. New applications for this meeting were received February 6th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meetings must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, February 13th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, February 14th, 11:30 to 1:30 at the M Park Large Conference Room. Is that accurate?
So we are going to reschedule that.
Okay.
And if anyone knows, before you leave, if you will tell me if February 21st or 28th works for you, we'll go with one or the other of those dates.
I think I replied that either one
I think
is
you did.
fine for
Yeah,
me.
I think I heard from a couple of you, so, yeah. But I'll follow up with anybody I haven't heard from, and we'll get a date set.
Excellent. Are there any items from commissioners? Commissioner Poore, would you like
So
to
you were
speak?
actually going to attend the March meeting? You're not going to okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I
making
wouldn't go
sure.
to my last meeting date, you know?
Okay.
No, I'll be there.
I'll wait to celebrate then.
Celebration. Any citizens that wish to be heard? Okay, the meeting's adjourned.